Welcome. Tonight we return to a slower world, one of steel and silence, where every step was a choice, and every glance held a lifetime. This is not the history you read in books. This is the kind that lingers in the bones. So breathe slow, let the fire crackle. And if stories like this help you rest, you might want to stay a while. Subscribe if you'd like more quiet chapters like this one. There are still many stories waiting to be told. Chapter 1, The Field Awaits. It does not begin with swords. It begins with silence. The field waits long before they arrive. It is not special, not marked by flags or fanfare, not chosen for beauty or glory. It might be flat or uneven. It might hold last year's wheat or the faint remains of hooves. But it waits. Every step taken toward it makes it more real. By the time someone calls it the place, it has already listened to so many names that don't need to be spoken. It is cold, maybe, or warm, or wet, or still crusted with frost that does not melt until noon. No one comments on the weather. They are too busy trying to forget that this might be where they fall. Some notice the wind, some don't, but all of them feel the space. How open it is, how there are no walls to hide behind, how the sky watches, not like a god, but like a memory. There are no cheers here, no crowd. Sometimes someone waits nearby, a squire, a brother, someone tasked with witnessing. But even they stand back. Because a duel is not a story, not in that moment. There's not even a fight yet. There's a space, a breath held between two chests that do not want to exhale. One of them arrives first. He doesn't know if that's better or worse. His steps are louder than he expects. The mud clings, the grass bends. Every movement feels wrong, too big, like the land resists his presence. He walks to a point not chosen by anyone but obvious. Somewhere in the middle, somewhere unspoken. He looks down. There are no markings, no line in the dirt, no starting circle, just earth. Heavy, silent, waiting. He hears a bird, then doesn't. The other is coming. The second man's steps don't echo like the first's. Maybe because he walks differently. Maybe because now the field has accepted what's about to happen. Or maybe it's just quieter now because both men have stopped being men and started becoming weapons. They don't speak. Sometimes they do in stories. But not here. Not now. There is no need to say what they both know. That the world has shrunk to this patch of ground. That every road they've ever walked, every oath they've ever made, every sleep, every meal, every lie, every truth. All of it has led to this place where feet shift slightly to find balance. The air is thick, not with smoke, not with mist, with weight, and the field listens. The duel has not begun, but it has already started. In breath, in silence, in the way the birds do not return to the trees. There is no audience, only earth, no music, only heartbeat, no God, only consequence. The men don't touch their weapons yet. That comes later. Right now, they only look, not at each other's hands, but at posture, at breathing, at hesitation. The field doesn't care who is stronger or smarter. It only knows presence. Who stands, who shakes, who shifts just half a step and then regrets it. And somewhere in the distance, someone remembers another duel. On this ground, or maybe nearby, the earth remembers. Blood is not forgotten easily. Not here. The soil is a keeper of names, of groans, of last words whispered into dirt. And the field, though silent, is never empty. It holds the weight of all who have waited here before. It holds this moment, too. And soon it will hold the next. Some say the duel begins when swords touch. But the duel begins earlier, in the night before, when sleep will not come. The one who is called to fight wakes before the sun, or doesn't sleep at all. He listens to the sounds of a world that carries on. Cows shifting in the dark, wind brushing old shutters, coals exhaling under ash, and he realizes how much of it he may never hear again. He eats if he can. Bread, water, nothing more. Food sticks in his throat like guilt. His fingers tremble, though he tells them not to. No one says good luck. That would be cruel. They say stand strong. They say do what you must. They say nothing, which says everything. He dresses slow, not from reluctance but from ritual. Each piece of cloth is a layer of thought. Will this stop a blade? Will I die in this? He does not wear his best. He wears what feels like him, what he wants to be remembered in. The boots are stiff. The tunic smells of old sweat. The belt has been tied so many times it knots itself. If he wears armor, it is partial. Greaves, maybe. Padded vest. Something to say, I tried. The weapon waits nearby. It has been sharpened. Not to gleam, but to cut. There is no affection between him and the blade. It is not a friend. It is a question. One he hopes not to answer. He steps outside, and the morning doesn't care. Birds sing. Mist drifts. The sky remains the same sky that has watched kings fall and children be born. It does not flinch at the thought of blood. He walks. Each step toward the field is a step away from the life he knows. A step away from routine, from chores, from warmth. A step toward the unknown, even if he's fought before. Because each duel is new. Each opponent a different mirror. He meets no one on the road. Or he does, and they look away. By the time he reaches the field, it is already more than a place. It is a threshold. And there the mind splits. One part remembers everything, every lesson, every grip, every mistake from practice. The other part tries to forget, to go numb, to become what is needed. Sometimes he prays, not loudly, not to a name, just a whisper into the dirt. Let it be quick. Others drink, not for courage, but to blur the edge of fear. A few try to smile. It doesn't last long. And when the other comes, the one he is to face, there is a flicker, not of hatred, not even anger, recognition. Both of them are here. Both are real. And the space between them is about to decide something final. They measure with eyes first, not distance, but intention. And though they haven't moved, haven't spoken, the duel has already claimed them. Not in blood, but in presence. The wind may blow or not. It doesn't matter, because the world has narrowed to one simple truth. One of us may not leave, and that truth hums louder than any sound. No judge speaks. No bell rings. There is no beginning, only continuation. Of silence, of tension, of breath that deepens. Of hands that loosen or clench, of bodies that stop belonging to the mind. And the field, still and knowing, cradles it all, like it has before, like it will again, not with judgment, with memory, because this moment before is the true beginning, not the clash, not the end, but the breath between two people, before they change each other forever. Time does not pass on the field. It stretches, pauses. It folds in on itself until seconds feel like seasons. The two men stand, not yet enemies, not quite men. They are possibilities now, each one imagining the other's blade, the angle of swing, the crack of mistake. Each one trying not to see their own death in the other's stance. No one counts down. There is no agreed signal. Sometimes it is a nod, sometimes a shift of weight, sometimes nothing at all. One just moves, but not yet, because there is still this moment where everything is still possible, where they could both walk away, where peace, thin, improbable, invisible, still hovers like fog on morning grass. And that's what makes this moment heavier than all others, because it holds a choice, even if unspoken, even if never acted on. They feel it, and because they feel it, they hesitate. Not long, not visibly, but enough. Enough for the air itself to become thick with what if. The birds don't sing here. Even if they did moments ago, they've gone. Or the ears no longer hear them. Everything else fades. Distant trees, distant voices, the ache in the knees, the weight of armor or cloth. Even fear becomes something external. It stands beside them, watching, breathing with them, not taunting, not shouting, just present. They are not brave. They are not cowards. They are aware. The first movement is almost always small. A shift of grip, a flex of a foot, the blink that lasts a second too long. Both watch for it, because it's not the motion itself, it's the intention behind it. And if they misread it, the duel ends early. They say the first swing is everything, but that's not true. The first pause is everything, because it's there that doubt tries to bloom, and they fight it not with steel but with breath. One inhales, deep, feels the spine, the soles, the sky. The other lets out a slow exhale, hoping it's not the last one with calm in it. This moment, this long, stretching, unbearable pause, it is the loudest thing in the world, and no one ever remembers it properly afterward. Not because they forget, but because it's too big to carry, too slow to hold, too intimate. It belongs only to the field. The duel begins in the silence, but it is born in the waiting. The field knows this. It has seen it too many times. Two bodies, two shadows, locked in a stillness that is louder than any scream. This is not theater. This is not honor. This is survival pretending to be ritual. And still neither moves, because the longer they wait, the more alive they feel. And that, too, is a kind of power. Not the kind that swings a sword. The kind that stands, when every instinct begs to run. And when the moment breaks, when finally the first foot presses forward, when the spell of stillness shatters, it is not relief. It is surrender, because now all that was possible narrows to one truth. This will end. And when it does, the field will still be here, quiet, holding footprints, and blood, and breath, and memory. The men will not be the same. One might not rise, but the earth will remember, because that's all it does. And as the duel begins, the field says nothing. It only listens. Chapter 2, the weapons weren't the point. The sword was never the hero. It didn't shine. It didn't sing. It didn't know your name. It simply waited. A piece of metal shaped by flame, sweat, and repetition. And when a man picked it up, it did not whisper prophecy. Pulled at the wrist, tested the grip. It demanded honesty. Most swords were not beautiful. They were scratched, scuffed, the hilt wrapped in leather that reeked of old effort. The blade might be nicked from training, from use, from age. And yet it worked, because a weapon didn't need to be perfect. It only needed to respond. And respond it did with weight. It's heavier than you expect, always. Not impossible, not crushing, just present. You don't forget it's in your hand. You don't swing it for show. You swing it like you mean it, or not at all. The sword isn't fast. You are. The sword isn't smart. You are. The sword doesn't kill. It extends your mistake or your mercy. In stories, the blade flashes and cuts with poetry. In truth, it sticks. It bites and drags. It clatters when dropped, and feels colder after blood touches it. Some men fought with axes, not because they were savages, but because axes were practical, easier to make, better in tight spaces, and cruel in close. An axe doesn't pretend. It's a promise, blunt, fast, final. Others used maces, iron balls on wooden handles. Brutal, yes, but reliable. It didn't matter what armor your opponent wore. If you brought the weight down hard enough, bones broke inside the shell. Daggers? They were last resorts. Not for duels, but for desperation. They were hidden. They lived close to the body. And when they came out, it was because nothing else would save you. The shield, though, that was something different. It was not just defense. It was rhythm. You fought around it, with it, against it. It wasn't passive. A good shield could strike, could shove, could turn a fatal blow into a bruise. And a bruise, in a duel, was a blessing. Shields were made of wood, sometimes rawhide, sometimes metal-rimmed. They broke, often, and when they did, it was loud, like the duel itself groaned. A man with a shield wasn't safer. He was just balanced. But no matter the weapon, all of them had one thing in common. They answered to the hand, not the heart, not the story. The hand. If your grip failed, so did the weapon. If your wrist turned late, the blade turned wrong. If your elbow locked from fear, the swing lost its will. A sword doesn't care about honor. An axe doesn't care about truth. A dagger doesn't know justice. They only know motion, and motion only knows what the body tells it. You didn't choose a weapon to become a hero. You chose what you could hold, what you could trust, what you could lift again and again without thinking. Sometimes the choice was yours. Other times it was what you inherited, what your father left you, what you pulled from a corpse, what was handed to you with no ceremony and no clean edge. And in the duel, none of it mattered if you didn't know how to move. A weapon is not just a tool. It is a memory of every hand that held it before you. When you grip a sword, you're gripping a story, even if you don't know the words. The leather may be smooth from another man's palm. The crossguard might be notched from a blow that saved someone's life. And even if the metal has been reforged, it remembers. It always remembers. You learn this not in stories, but in sweat. You learn it in the still hours of training, when your wrist burns and your shoulders ache, and the instructor says again, no, not like that. Feel it, not swing, not slash, feel. Because a good fighter does not move the weapon. He listens to it. The sword will tell you when you've forced it. It will pull against you when your balance is off. It will tremble in your grip when you rush. And when you move with it, truly with it, it will glide. Not like magic, not like fate, like rhythm. It's a dance, yes, but one done in boots, on mud, under the weight of fear. You don't rehearse for a duel like a show. You condition for it. Swing, block, step, breathe, again and again, until your body moves when your mind forgets. Because in the duel you will forget. You will forget your name. You will forget your stance. You will forget what you meant to do. And the weapon, if you've treated it well, if you've earned its shape, if you've trained enough not to need to think, the weapon will remember for you. But that trust must be built. Not in one day, not in one duel, in hundreds of hours spent making mistakes, letting the blade fall too soon, letting the axe bite your own leg, snapping the haft of a spear because you forgot your distance. Every scar on a weapon teaches you something, and every scar on your body too, because sometimes the lesson comes late. Sometimes the weapon tells you, you held too tight, but only after the bruise has bloomed purple, only after the rib aches when you breathe. Some men never learn. They swing like the sword is a hammer. They lunge like the knife is a voice. They slam the shield like it will forgive their panic. But weapons are not kind. They reward calm. They punish haste. They do not comfort. They do not protect. They serve, but never save. And those who speak to their weapons like friends, maybe they aren't mad. Maybe they've simply learned that every blade has a language. It's in the hum of steel as it cuts air, in the feedback of impact, in the weight that shifts when blood touches the edge. The weapon will always tell you what you've done wrong, but only if you're willing to hear it. So when two fighters meet, the better one is not always the stronger, not always the faster, but the one whose weapon answers like breath. That connection between limb and steel, thought and movement, intent and form, that is what separates survival from silence. And sometimes even that is not enough. But it's what you bring, it's what you sharpen, not just the edge, but the listening. Because a weapon isn't just forged in fire. It's forged in failure, in patience, in trust. In the end, the weapon is just a mirror. It does not create skill. It does not grant courage. It reflects. A man who doubts will strike like he doubts. A man who panics will swing too wide, too early, too blind. And a man who believes he is invincible, his blade will betray him with arrogance. The steel does not care about your story. It does not care what brought you here. It does not care if you were right. It cares only for how you move. And in that, it is honest. Brutally so. Because a weapon will never lie for you. It will not make your footing stable. It will not forgive your distraction. It will not guide your hand if you close your eyes. And yet, every man clings to it like it's salvation. Because it is, in some small, cruel way, it is the only thing between you and what waits in front of you. A man like you holding something just as sharp, just as heavy, just as unwilling to bend. But a duel is not decided by edges. It is decided by moments. Moments when breath aligns with timing, when instinct overcomes fear, when hesitation flickers just long enough for the blade to pass through space. No weapon gives you those. You bring them from training, from memory, from pain. The weapon merely obeys. Some men name their swords, not out of romance, out of respect, because it's been with them longer than any friend, because it has survived more than most, because when nothing else listened, it did. They speak to it, before the fight, after, not in madness, in rhythm, because holding a weapon too long changes you. Your body shifts around it, your step adjusts, your wrist learns not just to swing but to absorb, to redirect, to let go. A good fighter knows when to hold, but a wise one knows when to release, because in a duel, control is not dominance. It is balance. Too tight and you tire, too loose and you drop. And so they hold, not just steel but breath, composure, possibility, and the weapon hums not with power but with presence. It is not here to end lives. It is here to answer the question that neither man can ask aloud. Do I deserve to leave? The weapon has no opinion. It listens. It delivers. It marks the body where words have failed. And when the duel is done, when one man falls, or both, or neither, it is the weapon that carries the weight of choice. It lies in the grass, stained perhaps, silent always. And those who see it do not rush to touch it. They know what it has done, what it has held, what it remembers, because every weapon remembers, not in thought, but in wear, in edge, in echo. And those who walk away, they carry that memory with them, not in victory, not in pride, but in ache, in caution, in the way they never again look at metal the same. Because once a weapon has listened to your fear, once it has shaken in your palm, once it has touched another soul, you know what it is. Not a hero, not a curse, just a mirror. Chapter 3, The Ritual of Preparation. No one simply walks into a duel. Before the blade, before the field, there is the ritual. Not grand, not sacred, just necessary. Because to face another person, Knowing what may come requires more than courage. It requires rhythm, a pattern to keep the fear from spilling over. It begins with the body, waking early, not always by choice. Sleep comes poorly when you know the morning might be your last. You sit, not with calm, with stillness, because even moving feels like too much. The world is loud in that hour, the clink of water poured, the groan of wood under boots. The birds, if they sing at all, sound like reminders. You wash, not to look presentable, but to feel human. The cold water wakes the bones. The hands, the scar on the thigh you got years ago training with someone who no longer lives nearby. You wash not because it matters to anyone else, but because you want to face death clean. Then comes the clothing. Not armor, not yet. Linen first, then wool, layer by layer, each one chosen for function, not flair. You pull the tunic over your head. The collar scratches, the sleeves catch, but it's familiar. The belt is worn, the buckle loose, but it holds. You notice how the fabric falls, whether it drags at the knees, whether it restricts the waist. You tie and retie until movement feels possible. Then, if you have it, the armor, piece by piece. You don't rush it. Every strap, every tie, every ring has a place. You check them more than once, because no duel is lost for lack of strength, so often as for lack of preparation. Mail is heavy, not unbearable but persistent. It shifts your balance, changes how you breathe, how you turn. Leather stiffens if left too long and cold. You stretch it, you twist it, you curse under your breath when it creaks wrong. And if you have no armor, then you make peace with that. You wear what you have, and you wear it with care, because even cloth, treated with respect, can carry you further than pride. The boots always last, because once they're tied, you're almost ready. And ready is not a word you use lightly. Hands adjust sleeves, fingers test knots. A thumb rubs along a scar on your wrist, checking that the leather guard still sits well. There is a rhythm in it. Pull, buckle, test, breathe, like prayer, only quieter. Some light candles, others sit in dark. Some say names of those who died before. Others say nothing at all. A few laugh, not from joy, from nerves, from the absurdity of it all, from the fact that dressing like this might lead you to die dressed like this. Still, you continue. You prepare the way a monk prepares to walk into cold wind. Not with hope, with resolve. Your hands stop shaking, or maybe they don't, but they move with purpose now. You look in the reflection of water, steel, shield, and wonder if it's the last time you'll see your face. You don't dwell. You finish the knot. You roll your shoulders. You stand, and for a moment, just a breath, you feel ready, not fearless, just aligned. The sword waits. It always does. It lies where you left it the night before, cleaned if you had the time, wrapped if you cared enough, ignored if you couldn't bear to look. Some place it on cloth. Some leave it leaning by the door. Some tuck it beneath the bench where they sat as children. But wherever it rests, you feel its presence long before your hand touches the hilt. Because this is the part where everything becomes real. You dressed. You checked the straps. You tightened the boots. You rubbed the ache in your shoulder. But until you pick up the weapon, it's still just theory. Your fingers hesitate, even if this is your third duel, even if it's your 10th, because the steel is never the same twice. Carries something. Your fear, your breath, your silence. You lift it, slow, no flourish, no pose. The weight reminds you of who you are. Not a knight, not a story, just a man who made choices, or was caught in the choices of others. You test the grip. The leather creaks. Your thumb brushes the edge. It's sharp enough. It always is. Some check the edge 3 times, not because they think it dulled, but because routine is safety. Even false safety feels better than none. You don't swing it here, not in the house, not with walls that know your childhood. Instead, you breathe. You let your hand settle. You let the blade become part of the silhouette. Then comes the shield, if you have one. It's heavier than it looks, awkward at first, but the arm knows how to fold into it. You test the strap. You rotate the shoulder. You find the angle you practiced 100 times on straw and wood. There's comfort in it. Not joy, just familiarity. Feels like walking an old road. Rough, worn, but known. Next, the dagger. The backup. The hidden prayer. You tie it at the thigh, or near the ribs, or behind the hip. Somewhere you can reach when you no longer have time to think. You check it last, as if admitting you might need it is the final surrender. Then, you sit. Not long, but long enough. You look around the room, at the wall with marks from growing taller, at the stool your father made, at the kettle that still smells of ash. This may be the last time, not just to be here, but to be here this way, alive, unafraid, whole. You look at your hands. They've done more than fight. They've built, cooked, written, held, and today, they may be remembered for what they destroy. You breathe again, not because it calms you, but because it reminds you that you still can. You close your eyes. Sometimes that's when the prayers come, not to gods, to people, to faces, to voices, not for victory, just to be remembered. You rise. The sword comes with you. The shield hangs behind. The dagger waits. And the door, wooden, simple, cracked from years of use, opens with a groan that sounds louder than war. Outside, the sky doesn't care. The wind doesn't care. But they greet you all the same, because this is the path. And even if it ends in silence, you will have walked it fully prepared. The road to the field is never long, but it always feels endless. You step outside, and for a moment nothing changes. The sun still hides behind morning haze. The wind carries the same smell of damp wood and distant fires. A dog barks 2 houses down. Someone splits kindling. Someone else pours water into a basin. Life goes on, but not for you. Not yet. You are walking toward a silence no one else hears. Your boots make the usual sounds. Thud, scrape, thud. But today they echo. Not louder, just deeper. Like the ground has begun to listen. You don't march. You don't run. You walk. The sword does not bounce. The shield does not clatter. Everything is still outside and in. Sometimes you pass people. Sometimes you don't. When you do, they don't speak. Their eyes find your boots, or the mud, or the trees. They know that there's no need to say anything. No one asks who your opponent is. No one asks why, because those questions are too large and too late. What they might say, they don't. And what you might answer, you've already rehearsed in your head 12 times, only to forget it again. You nod. They nod. And then the path continues. Your hand adjusts the belt. Your shoulder shifts the shield. The sword's weight finds your hip again and again. Each step becomes quieter, not in sound, in thought, because your thoughts start to dissolve. The names, the reasons, the memories, they float just out of reach, like smoke through fingers. You do not force them back. You let them drift. Because the field does not want noise. It wants stillness. And if you do not find that stillness before you arrive, it will find it for you, too late, too violently. So you empty yourself, not like a monk, like a soldier who knows fear better than pride. You reach the edge of the woods, or the bend in the road, or the old stone wall. You know this is the last border. Beyond it, the field. You pause, not for drama, not for breath, but to mark the moment. Because once you cross, you are no longer the person who made tea in that house, who fed the chickens, who kissed someone once on the cheek. You are the one who walks into silence. You are the one the earth will soon measure. You listen. Birds? Maybe. Wind? Always. But mostly, just heartbeat. Your own. Steady now. Not calm. Not brave. But present. And then you take the step. One more. And then another. And then you see him. The other. He has already arrived. Or maybe you have. The order doesn't matter. What matters is this. You are both here now. And the ritual is complete. There is nothing else to prepare. No more to fix. No more to say. What is about to happen will be simple. And terrible. And final. But right now, for one last breath, you are a man who has walked the path. And the earth under your boots remembers how you walked it. Chapter 4, The Opponent. The opponent is not the enemy. Not always. Often not even close. He might be a stranger. He might be someone you trained beside, laughed with, bled next to during exercises that now feel like rehearsals for this final act. He might be someone you once respected, or feared, or pitied, and now he stands across from you. Not a monster, not a beast, just a man with breath, and weight, and eyes that do not look away. This is the part no one prepares you for. Not the sword, not the pain, but the face. Because faces are where humanity lives. And it's hard to swing at humanity. He might look young, or older than he should. He might be sweating through his collar. He might be calm. He might even smile, not with joy, but with that thin, unreadable expression that says, "We both know what this is." And you do. There is no speech, no declaration, no dramatic pause, just two people who know that in the next few moments, their lives may change completely or end. You study him, not just how he holds his blade, but how he holds himself, where his weight falls, whether his shoulders rise with tension, whether his feet dance or dig in. You look at his hands. Are they calloused? Do they shake? You look at his face. Does he avoid your eyes? Or does he stare too long? All of it means something, or nothing, and that's the danger. Trying to find meaning where only instinct lives. Because in this space, you are not reading a person. You are reading a future, trying to guess where his first step will fall, trying to imagine where the steel will aim, trying to find the story before it's told. But there is no story yet. Only posture, only quiet, only you and him, and everything you do not say. You wonder, does he have someone waiting? Does he want to be here? Is he afraid? Or worse, is he not? You may never know, and it does not change what must come next. But still, you feel it, because even when you are ready to fight, you are not always ready to see, and seeing him, truly seeing, is harder than raising the sword. He is not a shadow, not a villain, not a line in a tale. He is you, with different choices, different regrets, different timing. And as you breathe, as the silence thickens, you realize you are not fighting him. You are fighting the moment, the fear, the weight of two lives collapsing toward a point that cannot be avoided. He shifts, you shift. The duel has not begun, but the world between you has already narrowed. Not to hate, not even to death, but to decision. And that decision will come soon. They say the eyes never lie, but in a duel they rarely tell the truth either. What you see in him might be fear, or focus, or calculation, and none of those things help you, because they all live next to each other. In the same narrowed gaze, you meet his eyes. You must, even if just once, even if for a breath. And in that breath, everything shifts. The field disappears. The sound, the sky, the air, all gone. There is only him, not the sword, not the shield, him. And what you see there is not rage, not blood, not the thirst for violence. Most times, it's not even hatred. It's awareness, a kind of sacred presence, as if both of you, in this moment, have stepped outside the world. Two people, in complete stillness, sharing a silence so exact, could be carved in stone. This silence says, we are the same. You do not speak it, but your breath speaks it. Your balance speaks it. Your stillness speaks it. You are not above him, not beneath. You are equal, equal in fear, equal in purpose, equal in what you must do next. It does not make it easier, but it makes it honest, because you will swing, and so will he, and one of you may fall, and the air around you both knows this, and accepts it. But for now, before the storm breaks, there is just the quiet, and in that quiet, his eyes speak again. They say, I know why you're here. I don't want to die either, but I won't make it easy. There is no challenge in his stare, no smirk, no bravado, just readiness. It is terrifying, and it is beautiful, because what you are looking at is not a killer, not a villain, not a beast. You are looking at someone who is willing to hold fear and not let it shake their knees. And that is a kind of strength most people will never understand. You blink. He doesn't. You shift. He mirrors. You breathe, and feel him breathe too. And suddenly, you are no longer guessing what he will do. You are preparing for what you know he must. And he is doing the same. Not because you are predictable, but because you are both human. And the human heart, when cornered, beats in patterns, tightens, prepares. It becomes still, just before the leap. And now, in the small narrowing of his shoulders, in the way he bends his knee just slightly, you see it. Not intent, not movement, permission. He is ready, not to strike, but to be struck, to accept what comes, to let go of everything but the next moment. And you feel the same. There is nothing left but this. You see each other, fully, without armor, without name, without story, and that, for a breath, makes the duel almost sacred. He moves first, or maybe you do, or maybe both at once, not with violence, but with weight, a half step, a shift of the blade, a test not of skill, but of presence, because the first movement is never about killing. It's about asking, are you still there? Are you real? Will you answer me if I come closer? The space between you shrinks, and as it does, everything that seemed heavy before falls away. The armor, the fear, the imagined victory, the sound of breath behind your teeth. Now it is only feet on dirt, steel in hand, and eyes still locked, like neither of you can afford to look away. You don't think of winning. You don't think of dying. You think of not making a mistake, because the first mistake is often the last. And he knows it too. That's why his hands don't tremble. They float, tense, ready but precise. You mirror him, not to mock, not to intimidate, but because you must. Because if you move too far forward, he'll take you. If you hold back too long, he'll read it as fear. There is no perfect range, only a thin ribbon of possibility, where everything happens, where nothing does. And you now stand on that ribbon. Your fingers adjust the grip. Your feet remember the training. Your shoulders lower. He sees it, and for a blink, he almost nods. Not respect, not pity, just acknowledgement. You're here too. You're not pretending. Let's finish this. And then he steps again. Not a charge, not a leap, just a decision made with muscles. Instead of words, your body responds, not because you're brave, because you're listening. Your blade lifts, not in panic, but like a breath, the way you've done it, 1,000 times, on wooden posts, on air, on nothing. But this is not nothing. This is him, and he is close now, so close you can see, where the edge of his tunic is stained, where his armor is cracked near the ribs, where sweat beads near his hairline. He is not perfect. Thank the gods. Neither are you. This is not a duel of legends. It is a duel of wills. And now they've collided. The blades haven't yet, but the choice has, and that choice hits harder than steel. You realize something, standing there. He doesn't want to kill you, but he will. And that's when the fear changes. Not vanishes, changes. From a storm to a thread, tight, thin, sharp. And as it wraps around your lungs, you let it guide you, not toward safety, toward clarity. Because fear, when named, becomes focus, and focus is what keeps you alive. For one more second, one more blink, one more shift, one more swing. And when that swing comes, whether from you or from him, the world will fracture. But for now, the silence still holds. And in that silence, this is not about victory. It never was. It's about showing up. It's about standing still in the face of someone who could end you and refusing to be anything but fully alive. Chapter 5, The Clash. It does not sound the way you expect. The first moment of impact. It is not thunder. It is not music. It is a thud, a scrape, a clatter of force against force, tempered not by strength, but by the weight of intention. Steel meets steel, but not like in the stories. There is no endless dance, no echo of sparks painting the air, only contact, then recoil, then breath, and then, again, your arm stings, not from being struck, but from holding too tight. The shield has already absorbed more than it was meant to. You feel it in your elbow, your shoulder, your spine. You do not step back. Not yet. But your knees shift. Your heel presses into earth. The ground reminds you, I'm still here. And so is he. The other. He's close now. Closer than comfort. Close enough that you can smell the iron on his breath. Close enough that the next blow will not be clean. It will be mess. But this is what you trained for. Not the strike, the mess, the tangled moment, when blades don't glide, but jam, catch, push against each other like teeth grinding. You swing, low. He parries, but it's not perfect. Your edge clips leather. He grunts, and for a blink, you feel hope. You crush it. Because hope can trip your next step. Instead, you breathe. Everything is loud now. The sound of your boots slipping half an inch. The ring of his weapon scraping yours. The exhale he lets out too fast. You don't chase. You wait. Wait for him to overreach. Wait for your legs to settle. Wait for that small flicker of doubt in his movements. The one you know will come. Because it always comes. Even in the best, even in the quiet ones. The duel has rhythm now, not grace, not beauty, rhythm, strike, recover, pivot, step, strike, recover, and in between, the thoughts, fast, sharp. Did I lift too high? Was that elbow exposed? Where is his weight now? And under those thoughts, a whisper, I am still alive. And so is he. You clash again. Steel rings. Or maybe that was your shoulder against his. You don't know anymore. You just feel impact. His blade finds your shield edge. It schemes. Sparks? Maybe. You don't care. You feel heat near your ribs. Warmth. Blood. You check nothing. There is no time. There is only now. And he is in front of you. And he is not slowing. Neither are you. Your wrist aches. Your thigh barks. Your mouth is dry as bone. But your grip does not fail. Not yet. You counter. Hard. He wasn't ready. Your blade finds something. Armor. Skin. He stumbles. Or maybe he just steps aside. It doesn't matter. You press. Then stop. Because pressing is where mistakes happen. He recovers. Of course he does. He's not new to this. He's not easy. And that means you respect him more now than you did 5 minutes ago. If it has been 5 minutes, time is smoke. All that matters is you are both still here, still swinging, still reading, still alive. And the clash, the part everyone thinks is the heart of the duel, is not the heart. It is the breath between mistakes. And you haven't made yours yet. The duel no longer feels like something you're doing. It feels like something that's happening to you. You don't guide your feet, they land where they must. You don't swing the blade. It moves through you like you're holding lightning by the hilt. You are no longer watching him. You are feeling him, his motion, his rhythm, the twitch in his elbow before the next cut, the slight lift of his shoulder that tells you something's coming, and then it does. You block, but not cleanly. His blade glances your guard, bites into the air beside your face. The wind from it whistles past your ear, like a warning. Still here. You pivot. Low. Your boot skids across loose soil. You feel the ground complain beneath you. Balance. Everything is balanced now. Too far forward and you fall. Too far back and you're chased. Too still and you're dead. He knows it too. You can tell by the way he plants his foot, like he's dancing with ghosts. By the way his weight shifts, just enough to not be caught. You strike. Not hard. Not fast. Smart. A shallow cut. A test. It lands. You feel it. Not deep but enough. He growls. Not from pain, from distraction. Because now it's real. Now it's not training. Not posturing. Now his body is marked. And he knows you did it. You expect fury. Instead, he smiles. A thin, blood-wet curve of knowing. He nods just once. Not well done. Just, now we're even. He comes in harder. Closer. Suddenly the duel is no longer about precision. It's about space. And space is running out. You close. So close you can feel the heat from him. So close that your weapons no longer swing. They shove. They trap. They dig. Your blade meets his arm. His shoulder crashes your ribs. You grunt. He exhales into your neck. This is not what they write about. This is ugly. This is sweat and blood and dirt and breath. This is hands grabbing, elbows driving, grips failing and recovering again. You're too close. But too close is where real duels go. His shield is somewhere behind him. Yours is on the ground now. Or was it kicked? No time to check. You grab the hilt with both hands. Not to finish. To survive. He twists. He grabs your forearm. You twist. You break it. He curses. You press. You're not trying to kill. You're trying to find air. And when you do, when you finally separate, there's silence. No one speaks. No one cheers. Just two bodies. Heaving, bleeding, half bent, half broken. You look at him. He looks at you. There is no winner yet. But both of you know, the duel is changing. It's no longer a test. It's a conversation. And your blades are the only voices left. Everything slows. Not like in the tales where time stretches for drama. This is different. This is the kind of slow that feels earned. Like the fight itself is finally tired of pretending to be fast. Your arms hang lower. His too. Both of you are bleeding, though neither of you knows how much. You are not thinking of victory. You are thinking of ending. Not death, just end. The part where one of you doesn't get back up, where the other one kneels, or turns, or walks away. But it's not time yet. Not quite. He moves first, or maybe you do. There's no drama left in the gesture. It's sluggish, honest. A swing that would have been fatal in the first minute. Barely touches leather now. He steps. His boot catches on the earth. You see it, that flicker of imbalance. And your body surges. Not because you want to, because you're trained to. Your blade lifts. Your feet charge. The gap is nothing. He sees it too late. Or maybe not. Maybe he lets it happen. Because instead of retreating, he lowers his own sword. He lets it fall just slightly, not dropped, but not raised. An offering, or a dare. You halt. Takes everything in you to stop that blade. Your knees lock. Your back seizes. Your wrist screams. But you do. You stop. Half an inch from his throat. He blinks. Slow. There is no fear in him. Only breathing. You're close enough now to see his eyes. Not wide. Not pleading. Just present. And that's when you understand. He wasn't going to block. He gave you the choice. To end it. To claim something. A win. A death. A silence louder than thunder. You hold the blade there. Neither of you moves. The field is still. The air, thick. Even the birds stay gone. And then he speaks. One word. Or maybe none. Maybe it's just a sound. A breath shaped like mercy. You lower the sword. Not dropped. Not thrown. Just down. He nods. Not thanks. Not surrender. Just recognition. Two men came here to fight. They did. But that fight ends here. Not with blood. Not with applause. Just stillness. He steps back. So do you. Not far. Just enough. You both breathe. Not like warriors. Not like survivors. Like people. Tired. Real. Human. You retrieve your shield if it's still whole. He checks his arm. You don't speak. There's no need. The clash is over. But something else has begun. Not peace. Not friendship. Just a shared scar. Written not on the skin, but in the way you'll never forget each other's eyes. Chapter 6, After the Duel. It doesn't end when the blades lower. Not really. The fight might be over. The blood may stop spilling. But the silence that follows, that's the part no one tells you about. It doesn't feel like relief. It doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like echo. You're standing in the same field, but the world has shifted a few inches to the side. The trees seem quieter. The sky looks pale. Even the wind forgets to move. Your heartbeat is still racing, but the danger is gone. And your body doesn't know what to do with that. You feel tired in places that aren't supposed to feel. Behind the knees, under the collarbones, between ribs that never took a blow. You take one step. It feels like the first step of your life. Your leg doesn't want to move. Not because it's injured, because it's afraid of what comes next. You look at him, your opponent. He's still there, still breathing. Still shaped like someone you almost had to kill. And he looks at you too, not with resentment, not with thanks, with knowing. Because there is now a piece of you that belongs to him, and a piece of him that lives in your memory forever, no matter what happens after this, no matter if you forget the name, the year, the smell of grass underfoot, you will remember how it felt to almost end someone, and how it felt to stop. You gather what remains. Your blade dirty, your shield dented, your armor heavier now, not from weight but from memory. You touch your side. Still bleeding? Yes, but it doesn't matter. It's a wound you expected. And those are the ones that sting the least. He turns first, walks slowly, no limp, no stumble, just the gait of someone who's walked through something most people never will. You wait a moment, not out of hesitation, out of respect. Then you follow, not together, but not apart. There's a strange kind of silence between you now. Not awkward, not empty, just honest. Like two men who have both seen the same storm and lived. No one cheers, no crowd, no applause. And maybe that's the best part, because this wasn't for them. It never was. You pass the stones at the edge of the field, the ones marked by other duels, other names. You don't stop. You don't add yours, because you're not sure if this was a victory, or even a survival. All you know is, you're still walking, and every step feels like it belongs to someone else, until it doesn't, until your body remembers itself again, and you remember that the duel is not the thing that defines you, it's the thing you lived through. The house is still where you left it, the same roof, the same door, the same wood that creaks in the same places, but it feels smaller now. Not because the house has changed, because you have. You step inside and everything is still. The table sits where it always has. The chair, slightly off-center. The cup on the shelf you forgot to clean. It's all there, exactly as it was. As if the world didn't notice you left. And maybe it didn't. You sit, not with relief, with weight. Your legs fold slower than usual. Your arms rest heavier than before. You feel the stiffness in your fingers, from clenching the hilt too long. The cup is still full from the morning. Cold now. You drink it anyway. Tastes like something from before. Before the field. Before the silence. You exhale, and the sound surprises you. You didn't realize you were holding your breath since the moment the duel ended. Or maybe even before that. You start unbuckling straps. Leather groans. Metal clicks. The smell of sweat and earth rises from your tunic. Like smoke from a long-burned fire. You peel layers off slowly. Not from pain. From care. Because each buckle feels like a memory. Each knot, a reminder. You look down at your shirt. Dark where the blood soaked in. But it's not spreading anymore. You touch the spot. Hiss. Pull your hand back. Smile. You're still here. The smile fades quickly. Not into sadness, into quiet. That deep kind of quiet. That happens after a storm. You didn't think you'd outlive. Your boots are the last thing you remove. When you do, your feet feel strange. Like they're unsure of the floor. You walk across the room barefoot. Not to go anywhere, just to feel the ground again. You open the window. Cool air spills in. You listen. Birds again. Wind. Nothing else. It feels almost like the morning. Almost. But the air carries something different now. Something settled. Not peace, but something close. You reach for the cloth. Wipe your blade. Slow. Gentle. Like you're putting something to sleep. The steel is dull now. Not from damage. From honesty. It served. It endured. It didn't need to win to be remembered. You place it on the bench. Not as a weapon. As a witness. You don't look in the mirror. Not yet. You're not ready to see what's changed. But you light a candle. Let the flame flicker. And for the first time since before it all began, you feel the heat of something that isn't fear. You sit again. The same chair. Same table. But your body feels like a stranger in it. And maybe that's okay. Because you left something on that field. Something invisible. Not blood. Not pain. Time. And the version of you who walked out the door is not the one who came back. That version knew only theory. You know the weight. That version imagined glory. You know the silence. That version carried a sword. You carry what it meant. And now, as the candle burns steady, you sit in the same room as someone new. Night comes slow. You don't notice the sun has set until the room begins to vanish around you. The shadows stretch first, then the corners melt, then the edges of things blur, as if the world is trying to forget itself, just long enough to let you rest. But your body remembers, even after the sword is cleaned, even after the tunic is folded, even after the blood has dried along your ribs. The memory remains, not as pain, as presence. You lie down, not in triumph, not in relief. You lie down like a wall finally lowering its last stone. The bed is familiar, but it no longer fits, not because it's too small, because you are too full, full of what you saw, full of what you felt, full of all the moments you almost didn't return. You close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come, not yet. Not while your heart still plays the rhythm of the duel, not while your breath still tries to echo someone else's. You shift, the pillow creaks, the straw underneath complains, but your body won't settle. You feel the ghost of his blade near your cheek. You feel the thud of his foot in the dirt. You feel the moment your sword stopped, just short of ending something. And that moment, it lives with you now. You try to forget, not because it hurts, but because it's too heavy. But forgetting won't come either. So you do what warriors always do, when there's no more to fight, and too much to feel. You listen, to the wind, to the wood shifting in the walls, to the night, breathing like a quiet animal beyond the windows. And slowly, without permission, your body begins to loosen, not fully, not forever, just enough. Your hands uncurl, your jaw softens, your shoulders sink, and in that space, between memory and exhaustion, you finally begin to drift. Sleep doesn't fall on you. It arrives, careful, reluctant, like someone entering a house they're not sure they're welcome in. You do not dream of the duel. The mind protects itself. Instead, you dream of water, of forests, of walking down a road with no end, and no need for one. You dream of faces you do not know, and hands that do not reach for weapons. You dream of silence that doesn't weigh, of stillness that doesn't press. And though your body aches, and the cut on your side will wake you tomorrow, you sleep. You sleep not as a hero, not as a survivor. You sleep as someone who came home. And in the flickering dark, the blade rests by the door, not watching, not waiting, just still. Chapter 7, The Weight of Memory. It doesn't strike all at once. Memory doesn't crash like a wave. It seeps, like smoke under a door, like cold in your bones before the frost sets in. Comes in the middle of motion, washing your hands, feeding the fire, tying your boots. It slides in when your mind is quiet, and your body thinks it's safe. The duel, which felt like a storm while it happened, returns in fragments now. Not the whole thing, just moments. The sound of his breath, the angle of his wrist, the look in his eyes before the final step. You're not haunted, not exactly. It's not fear that follows you, it's weight. You carry it like an invisible satchel, strapped across your back. Familiar, always there. Some mornings you forget it, until the cut on your side pulls when you bend, or the old shield rattles in the corner, just enough to sound like steel on steel. And you're back, just for a second, not in body, but in memory. You can feel your fingers tighten. You can taste the metallic tang in the air. You can hear the silence that wrapped around you like a second skin. You blink, and the hearth crackles again. The house returns. The water boils, but the weight remains. Changes things. Not everything. Not visibly, but enough. You walk differently. not slower, more aware. You look at people's hands now, their posture, the way they move when they think no one sees. You hear sounds in new ways, not just for danger, for meaning, voices that tremble, footsteps that pause too long, silences that say too much. You don't speak of it. No one does, because even among those who fought, there's a kind of quiet code. You survived. They survived. The rest stays where it happened, but it still lives. In dreams, in how you hold the mug with both hands now, in how you check the door twice before sleep. Not fear, not paranoia, just memory. Memory that has grown roots. You try to write it once, just to get it out. A few lines, a description, something about the sound of breathing through blood. But the words don't land right. They feel too small, too soft. So you stop. You let it stay unspoken. Let it live where it wants to, somewhere behind the lungs, below the ribs, above the stomach, that quiet hollow place where truths live, when they're not ready to be told. Sometimes you wonder where he is now, the other one, if he feels it too, the weight, if he sees your face in the steam of morning water, if he hears your voice in the way the wind moves through dry leaves. But you don't dwell long. You've learned not to, because the memory is not a thing to solve. It's a thing to carry, not forever, but for as long as it needs. And on days when it feels too heavy, you sit with it. You don't run. You make tea. You light a candle. You stare at the wall. And you breathe. And sometimes, that's enough. There are days when everything feels normal. You rise before the sun. The water is cold against your skin, but it wakes you without cruelty. You stoke the fire, catches with the first breath of flame. The bread doesn't burn, and for a while, you forget. You chop wood. You sweep the floor. You fix the hinge that always leaned left. Birds sing. Wind moves gently through the thatch. Someone down the road is laughing. And the world feels right until it doesn't. Not because of any noise, not because of any flash, but because something in your chest pulls like a string tightening or a bell ringing with no sound. You pause. Your hands are still. Your eyes focus on something that isn't there. A flicker, a movement, not in the room, in the memory. You feel it again. That half second before the clash, that weight in your wrist, that impossible silence between your breath and his, and it returns, not like fear, but like truth. The world goes on. The warmth remains. The tea cools on the table, but you are suddenly elsewhere, not lost, not broken, just split. One part here, one part still standing on the field, blade lifted, heart braced. You close your eyes, not to escape, to listen. You hear nothing, and that's what tells you it's real, because memory doesn't need sound to be loud. You move again, slow, careful. You wipe the table. You stir the pot. You touch the doorway on your way out, as if grounding yourself in wood. People talk to you. You nod. You smile. You don't lie. You just don't say everything. They think you're quiet, thoughtful. You are. But they don't know how much of that quiet is holding. You hold it in your shoulders, in your voice, in the space between sentences. And when you laugh, it's real. But even joy has a shadow, not a heavy one, just long. It stretches behind you on sunny days. It doesn't chase, but it's always there. You begin to notice small things. You no longer flinch at sudden noises, but you count exits in every room. You watch people's hands more than their faces. You memorize how many steps it takes to reach the door, not because you expect trouble, because your body still thinks. It lives inside that moment of decision, of presence, of finality. But here's what surprises you. You still love things. You still taste honey and smile. You still run your fingers across carved wood and feel peace in the grooves. You still hum songs from before, even if the words are gone. You still sleep, most nights, and when you do dream, it's not always of the fight. Sometimes it's of the road, of trees bending in wind, of rain falling quietly on the roof, of his eyes, not full of fear, but of understanding. And you wake not in panic, but in stillness, because the memory is no longer a wound. It is a part of your map, a place you've been, a place that shaped you, but not the place you live. There comes a day, not marked, not announced, when you stop trying to put the memory down, not because you enjoy it, not because it doesn't hurt, but because you understand some things aren't meant to be released. They're meant to be woven in. You don't notice it at first. You wake, you eat, you walk through your days, and then you find yourself talking to someone, a friend maybe, or just someone passing by, and they mention fear, or struggle, or the feeling of being on the edge of something sharp. And you realize you know that edge, not as theory, as memory. And you nod, not to tell them you understand, but because you do, not with words, with being. And in that nod, you carry everything, without having to show it. The weight is still there, but it doesn't lean anymore. It rides quieter now, like a companion you no longer argue with. Some evenings, you find yourself staring into the fire, not because you're lost, but because the flame reminds you of moments when you were more alive than you thought a person could be. You don't chase the memory. You don't bury it. You just sit with it like someone keeping watch with an old friend. And maybe that's what healing is. Not forgetting, not erasing, just sitting beside it, without fear. You begin to speak of it sometimes, softly, with no need to impress. I once stood across from someone, you say, and we didn't hate each other. They ask what happened. You say, we both lived, and that's enough. No need for glory, no need for legend, just the truth, carried plainly. The blade stays hung. You pass it every day. Sometimes you touch it, not to test the edge, to remind yourself it existed, and that you did too, that day, that version of you, still part of the whole. You stop expecting the memory to fade. You stop fearing that it won't. Instead, you make space for it, like one more tool in the chest, one more scar under the sleeve. And some nights, when the world feels heavy, when the stars don't speak, when silence stretches long and wide, you find yourself whispering to the dark, I remember, and it answers nothing, because it doesn't need to. You're not asking anymore. You're just saying it aloud. So the memory knows. It is not alone. Chapter 8, The Other Side of the Blade. They notice. Even if they don't understand, they notice. At first it's in the little things. The way you look at a door before you walk through it. The pause you make before speaking, as if measuring the weight of even the lightest words. The way you listen, not just to what's said, but to what's missing. You don't mean to do it. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're not seeking attention. You've simply learned the value of silence. And now, you carry it with you like a shadow that never quite leaves the corners of the room. Some of them ask, usually the bold ones, or the ones too young to know what not to say. What happened to your hand? They'll ask, and you'll look at it as if remembering that it does look different now. The way it doesn't close all the way anymore. The way the knuckles stiffen when the cold comes early. You'll say, old injury, and that will be enough. Not a lie, not the whole story, just enough. The ones who know you best, they don't ask, but they watch. They see how you wake from sleep sometimes, with your hand gripping nothing, as if still holding a hilt. They hear how quiet your footsteps are, even on stone. They see how your eyes trace the path of people in a room, not out of suspicion, but habit. You're not hunting. You're remembering what it means to be aware. You still laugh, still nod at stories, still drink when the ale is past. But the depth behind your eyes is different now, like someone who once stood in a storm and now measures every cloud with quiet reverence. And they feel it, even if they don't name it, that quiet strength, that still gravity. They trust you more, or fear you slightly, or both, and you carry it without pride. Because the last thing a real fighter wants is to fight again. They think courage is what defines you. They're wrong. It's restraint, the ability to hold power and choose stillness, the strength to carry weight, and not ask anyone else to hold it for you. Some look to you as a leader, some as a question, a few as a threat, and you say little to all of them, not because you have nothing to offer, but because you know that wisdom speaks loudest when it's not forced. A child hands you a wooden sword once. You take it, hold it in your hand. It feels lighter than memory. You smile, show him a stance. Nothing flashy, just steady. He laughs, swings wide. You block gently. The whole village watches, like it's a performance. But for you, it's a prayer, a way of saying, "This is what I learned. Let it end with me. Let the blade be play, not fear." And when the moment ends, and the child runs back to his mother, you hand her the toy gently. She looks at you a moment longer than necessary, then nods. No words, just understanding. She sees it too, the weight, the calm, the part of you that no longer belongs entirely to here. You return to your seat, to your mug, to the quiet, and once again, the fire crackles, the night folds in, and you sit on the other side of the blade, no longer the one who strikes, but the one who remembers what it costs. They feel it before they understand it. Your presence is steady. You don't boast. You don't interrupt. You don't fill the room, but you anchor it. People sit straighter when you enter, not from fear, but from something older. Respect, perhaps, or caution without knowing why. You don't command attention. You receive it without asking, without wanting. They sense that something in you has shifted, that you've stood somewhere they haven't, that you've seen something they couldn't name even if they tried, and they start to move around you like water around stone. You hear it in their voices, the way they lower them when telling stories of loss or longing, the way they look to you, as if waiting for your silence to shape what happens next. The children feel it too, but differently. They come close, then pause. They test your stillness like a question. They throw stones not to hit, but to see if you move. And when you don't, they learn something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. That power can be quiet. That calm can be stronger than speed. That real danger doesn't need to shout. You never intend to teach, but you do, just by being. You help fix roofs, lift timber, walk the same paths as everyone else. But when you place a hand on a wounded animal and it stops thrashing, they notice. When someone panics in the firelight and your voice brings them down with just 2 words, they remember. They may not say anything, but they carry your presence in their own bones now, like a rhythm they didn't know they were dancing to. And at night, when laughter fades, and the food is gone, and only the last coals remain, some of them look your way. They wonder what it is you see when you stare into the dark. They wonder if you're thinking about the past, or if you're watching for something they can't. They wonder if that stillness is peace, or a kind of armor you can't take off anymore. One of them asks once, quietly, late, when no one else is near, "Does it ever go away?" You don't ask what, you know. You shake your head, not sadly, not bitterly, just honestly. "No," you say, "but it changes." And that's all. He nods, not as a student, as someone who needed to hear. That survival doesn't mean forgetting. Later, he'll tell no one you spoke, but he'll walk a little differently, and you'll see it, and you'll know that the silence passed through, exactly the way it was meant to, and in that moment, you realize something. You are not apart from this place. You are not unreachable. You are simply a man who has learned how to carry weight without making others feel it. And that is something rare, something holy, even if no one says it aloud. There are nights you don't speak to anyone, not from sadness, not from anger, just because the words inside you prefer the quiet. You sit near the hearth, the fire low, not out, just resting. The house hums softly, the way old homes do when they're at peace. Wood shifts, rope stretches, wind touches the shutters like it's asking to be let in. You let it knock. You do not answer. Your blade is nearby, not because you need it, because it belongs. It doesn't shine anymore. You don't polish it for show. You keep it oiled, clean, honest, like a memory that you choose to respect, but not worship. Sometimes your fingers touch the hilt without thinking, not to fight, just to remember that your hand still knows how to hold it, that it could, but won't. Not tonight, not anymore. You've fought your fight. The blade knows it. So does the chair beneath you. So does the dark. You close your eyes. You hear things most would miss. A bird landing on the roof. The low breath of a cow settling in the barn. A fox padding through frost outside the window. Each sound is its own kind of peace. You do not miss the noise of battle. You do not miss the way your heart beat like a drum, or how the world shrank to a blade's edge. You do not crave that fire. You survived it. You carried it home. And now you live among quieter flames. Some nights you speak, not to people, to the room, a word or two, not out loud, just enough for the silence to hear you. You say, "I am still here," or "I remember," or "Thank you." You're not sure to whom, maybe to yourself, maybe to the man whose blade stopped short, maybe to the day that let you walk away. You sleep early now. Your body needs less and asks more gently. You dream less often, but when you do, the dreams are not of war. They're of sky, water, steps on a quiet path, a fire with no battle waiting beyond it. Sometimes, in the dream, you see a younger version of yourself, unscarred, undefended. You don't speak to him. You just watch. He's not weaker, just earlier. And when you wake, you don't mourn him. You nod. You let the dream go. You let the silence return. You stand. You stretch. You walk barefoot across the same floor. You've always walked, but each time it feels more yours. Not because you own it, because you chose it. The quiet, the stillness, the way no one knocks at your door after dark anymore. They know, this is not exile. This is sanctuary, not built by stone, but by survival. And when you return to your seat, cup in hand, fire warm, blade sleeping, you understand something you never did in the old days. You were not made to be feared. You were not made to be followed. You were made to endure, and to sit like this, with no war behind you, no battle ahead, and no need to speak, is the loudest kind of peace you've ever known. Chapter 9, What Remains. You don't remember when it started, only that it did. The climb to the hill takes longer now. The axe feels heavier, though the wood is softer than it once was. Your knees ache in the morning, and the cold finds your hands faster than it used to. But you don't curse it. You accept it the way one accepts the setting sun. Not as loss, but as a rhythm. The world turns. So do you. You've stopped sharpening your blade. It sits in the corner now, wrapped in cloth, untouched but never forgotten. Not buried, not displayed, simply there. And that's enough. Some days you sit by the window and watch the road, not waiting, just remembering. You've walked that road more times than you can count. In armor, in silence, in thought. Now others walk it. You nod to them. Sometimes they nod back. They don't know who you were, only who you are. And that, too, is a kind of freedom. You speak more now. Not often. But when you do, your words carry weight. Without trying to. You tell stories sometimes. Not of the duel, but of rain. Of gardens that survived bad soil. Of animals that returned after storms. You tell stories of survival. In small things. The kind no one applauds. The kind that matter most. Children listen. Some with wide eyes. Some with arms crossed. Pretending not to. But they listen. And you can feel them carrying pieces of it away. Not like lessons. Like seeds. And that's enough. You walk slower. You sleep earlier. You eat less. But your senses grow sharper in ways that don't show. You feel when the weather will change. Before the clouds admit it. You know which fence boards will need mending. Without checking. You know when someone is hurting. Just by how they step into the room. People come to you more now. Not with questions. With presence. They sit. You sit. Sometimes you speak. Sometimes you don't. And no one feels the need to fill the silence. Because the silence in your home means welcome. You write a little now. Not for legacy. Not for fame. Just because it feels right. To leave something behind. That won't spoil with age. You write slowly. With pauses. With care. Some days it's just a sentence. Other days a memory. You don't edit. You don't revise. You let the words be what they are. Simple, honest, like the way you live now. And sometimes, when the night is quiet, you hold one of those pages in your hand and think, this too is a kind of blade, not to cut, but to open, to offer. And you smile, not because of pride, because of peace, the kind you only find when there's nothing left to prove. And everything left to feel. There's a rhythm now, so gentle you almost miss it. The days begin with birdsong, not loud, not urgent, just the kind that seeps in through the shutters, and reminds you that the world wakes up. Whether you do or not, you rise when your body agrees. You don't fight it anymore. You've fought enough. Your joints complain. Your spine argues. Your hands, once quick to grip, now slow to close. But you don't curse them. You greet them like old comrades, weathered, tired, but still walking beside you. Breakfast is simple. Bread, if there's flour. Cheese, if someone remembered. Sometimes fruit, soft and overripe, and somehow sweeter for it. You chew slowly, not from need, from appreciation. Every bite feels earned. Every sip a kind of reward. You walk your land, what little of it there is. A fence to check. A gate to nudge. A tree you planted long ago, now tall enough to give shade to others. Sometimes you speak to it. The tree. Not words. Not really. Just a presence. A breath. A shared stillness between two things that grew in silence. Neighbors pass. They wave. You nod. There's no need for more. They know who you are. Even the ones who don't know your name know the shape of your silhouette. Against the sunrise, you mend what breaks. Not quickly, but well. You still know how to tie a knot that won't slip. You still remember how to bind wood. so it holds longer than it should. And when someone younger asks, you show them, not as a lesson, as a gift. They ask, "How did you learn all this?" And you smile, because they think you're talking about rope, or doors, or plows. But you're not. You're talking about people, about time, about the blade that forged you without touching skin. You keep things simple. A candle in every room, a coat hung by the door, a place to sit that faces the window. You learn the names of birds by their songs. You know when rain is coming, just by the smell in the dirt. The world speaks differently when you're still, and in stillness, you found something no battle ever gave you: permission to be just that, not strong, not wise, not right, just present. Some days you laugh, at nothing, at everything, at the way your boots creak like old bones, at the way your tea cools the moment you sit down, at how long it takes to write a single line that says almost nothing, but means everything. And in that laughter, there's no sorrow, only breath, only proof that you're still here, and still yourself, even now, especially now, because what remains, after all the fighting, and all the silence, and all the watching, isn't a man made of steel, someone made of softness, of edges smoothed by time, of memories that don't need to be retold, to still be true. You remember less now, not because the memories are gone, because they've settled, like ash after fire, not erased, just no longer in the air. They live in the corners of your day, in how you fold a blanket, in how you check the latch on the window twice, even when the wind is calm. They visit you sometimes, the memories, not to haunt, to sit, like old companions. They return without warning, a face, a voice, the way the light once fell across the grass, on a field that no longer has a name. You don't run from them, you don't reach for them, you simply share the moment. Sometimes you speak to them, not aloud, in breath. You say things like, "I did what I could," or "I remember the way his hand trembled before the first swing," or simply, "Thank you," and then they fade again, like dusk slipping into night. The firelight is softer now. So is your voice. You don't speak to impress. You don't fill silences. You let the quiet exist, and others have learned to trust that space when you offer it. People still ask. Not many, not often, but now and then someone leans in close and whispers, "Do you ever think about going back?" And you smile, not with mockery, with memory, and you say, "There's nothing to go back to, only forward, always forward." They nod, even if they don't understand, because your voice says what words can't. In the evenings, you sit at the edge of your home, where the grass gives way to dirt, and the dirt becomes path. You watch the sun go down behind the hills, and for a few breaths, you feel it all again. Not the battle, but the boy you once were, the one who thought blades would make him strong, the one who thought silence meant loneliness, the one who thought peace was something granted by others. You smile at him too, and you whisper, "You made it. You didn't know you would, but you did." And you did not become a legend. You became a man. And in that, there is more power than steel ever gave you. The blade is still wrapped in the corner. You haven't touched it in years. But sometimes your fingers twitch in your sleep, as if still reaching for it. You let them. It's not a memory of violence. It's a memory of choice, of the day you stopped, of the moment you let something live. And in doing so, let yourself begin. You do not want statues. You do not want stories. But if someone ever carves your name into wood, let it be on a bench, beneath a tree, with room for others to sit beside it. And if someone asks what kind of man you were, Let them say, "He endured, he listened, he lived." And when the blade grew heavy, he laid it down, without bitterness, and that will be enough, more than enough. Chapter 10: The Quiet Beyond the Field. There is a kind of quiet that doesn't arrive suddenly. It doesn't fall like snow, or hush like fear. It simply becomes, slowly, softly, like the dusk that forgets to announce itself. You live in that quiet now, not because you've withdrawn, not because the world has pushed you aside, but because you've stepped gently, beyond the reach of noise. You don't feel old. You feel full, like a cup not overflowing, but exactly filled, to its edge. You still rise in the morning, still stretch your fingers against the grain of the table, still walk the steps of your home, as if it were carved into your very bones. The birds still sing, but now you hear them in layers, tone, distance, direction, like music written on air. And the wind, you no longer brace against it. You meet it, like an equal. You have few visitors now, not because you've been forgotten, because you've become a place. People visit without realizing why. Some sit with you. They bring questions they don't know how to ask. They bring fears too quiet for words. And you don't solve them. You don't even try. You pour tea. You pass bread. You tell a story about the time the well went dry. And everyone blamed the weather. But you knew it was the roots. They smile. And for a while, they forget what burden they carried in. That's the gift now. Not strength. Not legend. But space. Space to feel. To rest. To simply be near something that once knew fire and now knows peace. You tend your garden, not for harvest, for rhythm. You press your thumb into the soil. You know when it needs water, when it needs to be left alone. You've learned people are the same. You no longer expect the world to change, but you've changed how you see it, and that has made all the difference. You've stopped counting seasons. They count themselves just fine. Instead, you measure days, by the way the sun leans into the hills, by the way shadows pool at the edges of things, like they too are resting. Sometimes you sit on the edge of your bed, long after waking, not tired, just listening, to the floor, to the roof, to your breath. And in that stillness, you remember the field, not as a place of pain, not even of battle, but as a doorway, the moment where everything opened, where you were cracked by the weight of life, and found something soft inside. And now, in the house you've tended, in the silence you've chosen, you live past that doorway, on the other side, where nothing asks you to fight, and nothing fears you will. You are no longer the man who held the blade. You are the man who put it down, and stayed present, long enough to become whole. They speak your name less now, not from disrespect, from reverence, as if saying it aloud might stir something that deserves to rest. And you don't mind. You've never needed to be remembered loudly. You leave traces instead, not in books, not in song, but in the way people pause before they raise their voice, in the way they hold a tool more carefully. After learning from your hands, you've become part of the rhythm here, not central, essential, like a stone by the river that the water has learned to bend around. They build near your land now, new homes, new paths. Sometimes you hear children's feet racing along the fence you once built. You smile. You remember running once too, but not where, just how it felt, the strength, the air in your chest, the joy of movement for its own sake. You feel that same freedom now, when you move slowly, intentionally, without destination, not running away, not rushing toward, just being. One of them brings you a gift, carving small and careful, a piece of wood shaped into a flame. You hold it, turn it, trace the grooves with your thumb. You say, "It's beautiful," and mean it. They beam, and you see something in their face you once carried in yours, the hunger to be seen. You look them in the eye, not for long, just long enough to tell them, "You are here," and that is enough. And that is the wisdom no sword ever taught you, that being remembered doesn't require being loud. It requires being true, true in your hands, true in your silence, true in your staying. You tend your blade one last time, not to use it, to let it go. You unwrap it slowly. The cloth is worn, so is the hilt, but the edge is still honest. It reflects your face now, lined, calm, full of quiet years. You nod to it, not with regret, with thanks, and then you bury it. Not deep, not hidden, just returned, to earth, to rest. A marker stands nearby, not with your name, with a circle carved in stone. No beginning, no end. Someone will ask one day what it means, and someone else will answer, "He lived well. He left peace behind." And that will be all. And it will be true, because what remains of you is not a story told, but a silence shared. And there is no greater legacy than the kind that lets others breathe deeper after you've gone. In the end, there is no end. There is only the soft folding of time, into memory, into presence, into stillness. You wake one morning, and the sun is already high. You do not rush. The light filters through the old wood, like it always has, but today, you see it differently. It isn't softer, it's more patient. You move through the room, your steps soundless, not out of stealth, but because the house knows you. The floor does not creak beneath you. The walls do not resist your breath. The world is no longer something you walk through. It walks through you. Outside, the wind bends the grass, not violently, as a whisper. You sit beneath your tree, the one that grew slow, like you, not tall, but rooted. Your hand rests on your lap, your pulse steady, unhurried. You no longer ask yourself what comes next. You no longer fear not knowing. The blade is gone, the story's told, and what remains is not silence. It is something deeper. It is the feeling of being kept by the land you stayed loyal to, by the people you never tried to rule, by the fire you didn't light with war, but with waiting. Children walk past, not knowing who you were, just that you sit there, always, like a stone, like a breath. They smile, and you smile back, and no words are needed. One day, you won't rise from this bench, not because you've fallen, because you've arrived. And when they find you, your face will not be grim. It will be still, not blank, full, not a shadow, presence. They will bury you beneath the tree, not out of tradition, but because that's where you always belonged. And the grass will grow, and the wind will continue, and the world will turn. But your silence, your chosen, earned, sacred silence, will remain in the hands of those who grip gently, in the voices that do not rise to be heard, in the footsteps that pause before crossing the threshold, not as fear, not as reverence, as memory, not of war, not of legend, of peace, the kind that walks with people, the kind that softens rooms, the kind that lets others sleep. They will not tell your story loudly, and that is right, because you were never here to be told. You were here to live, and in the quiet beyond the field, you still do. You're still here. That means something. Maybe the silence helped. Maybe you just needed a place to rest. Either way, thank you for sharing this time. If you'd like more slow stories like this, more firelight and memory, More history told like a whispered dream. You can subscribe. We'll be here when you need quiet again.